This interview is brought to you by Midland Exploration, a dynamic and aggressive mineral exploration company focused on gold, platinum, and base metal discoveries in the province of Quebec.
Welcome to Cambridge House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette at the Toronto Resource Investment Conference. I'm joined by Dan Popescu, who is an expert on gold and silver, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion about China specifically. Welcome, Dan. Great to have you here with us.
Nice being here.
Dan, gold prices have significantly declined while maintaining strong demand in Asia. When will the gold price actually reflect that demand?
Timing is the hardest part in finance and investments to predict, and especially for gold in this situation right now, because it can just explode based on some, we call it black swan events, but even if they are supposed to be unknown, we know they could happen, they will happen, but when, we don't know it. So it could happen in a fraction of, in about 1 day, with the price of gold exploding 300, 400, maybe in one single day, which begin the trend again. So it's unpredictable. We know why. We know it's the currency wars, and gold is a hard currency, the one that most of the central banks are buying now. Even the major developed countries which used to sell it, now they are not selling it anymore, but they might start also buying it. And China has its own strategy, which is to use gold to give credibility to their currency.
Well, that was my next question. You know, China is a major buyer of gold. So is that still happening at the same pace?
It's still happening at the same pace. We can't say exactly at what pace, if it's accelerating or not, because China's strategy is to hide and to announce it when it feels it's the right moment to do it. They don't make regular announcements of their gold holdings. They announced it about 2 years ago, and the next one, it might be when they hit at least 6,000 tons. So we don't know it. They might already have it, but they are very patient. They take their time, they build their strategy, and when they feel that it's the moment, they hit.
Well, speaking of strategy, what's the idea behind China encouraging its citizens to purchase gold?
That was the intriguing aspect that I never really understood, because central banks and sovereigns in general, kings, presidents, they don't like their citizens to hold gold because it takes money away from the currency, from the economy. So they don't like it. We see the situation in India. So I was always wondering, why do they encourage their population? And the strategy seems to be to get people to buy gold, and at the right moment, if necessary, they can always nationalize it,
right,
like United States did in the 1930s.
The confiscation.
Okay, it's one of the possibilities that the reason they are encouraging the population is to attract by indirect means. So on official statistics, it doesn't appear that the Central Bank of China has increased its holdings, but it is there in the hands of their citizens in China and available when they want it, if they want it. And that's in case they want to back up the yuan with gold.
And I've heard theories that, you know, the Chinese government wants the population to hold gold for stability purposes in case there is any kind of global crisis.
Yes, that's the reason. It's mainly that the government wants to have as much gold as possible. If there is a currency crisis, which it's almost sure we're going to have it, is it going to be in 2 or 3 years? I think it's going to be. It's very close. Is it going to be in 5, 10 years? We'll have a currency crisis with a new international monetary system, and it's evident that gold will be part of it. What part of it is going to be? Is it going to back up an international currency like the CDR? or is it going to be gold standard, a full gold standard? We don't know, but it's going to be, and it could be a big conflict between China, Russia, and United States, who doesn't want to give the dollar.
So you think it's a possibility that China could back the renminbi with gold?
Yes, that's their strategy. They don't think that internationally they can push the yuan by itself. But if they link it to gold, if they support it with gold, that will give a credibility to their currency. And that's their strategy.
Now, what do you think China's overall goal is with the renminbi?
Not only China, but the whole world is dissatisfied with what started with the Bretton Woods, and especially since the delinking of gold to the US dollar. So it's now a dollar standard. And most of the countries, especially the emerging countries, don't like it. Europeans, with the goal in 1970, because that's why the crisis started, didn't like it at all and demanded gold rather than in exchange for the dollars. The crisis continued. We went down a little bit in the 80s, but it's still there. And now with the debt of United States, there is no backing for the dollar, and that's why emerging markets don't like it at all. And they are trying to take the disproportionate privilege of the US dollar to bring it down like any other currency, like the euro or the yuan. So they don't want to eliminate the dollar. They just want to bring it down to their own size. That is the strategy, and the Russians have the same strategy. For the moment, they are not collaborating, at least we don't know if they are. But they seem to be moving in parallel.
Just as we wrap up, Dan, what is your target for gold in the next year?
As I said, it could be a black swan event and a surprise, and that would not surprise me to see gold crossing 2,000 this year. Okay?
By the end of
December.
2013?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's going to be a shock, it's going to be a surprise and a fast move. Okay, so that will not surprise me, but it can be, I can be off by 1 or 2 months and it's happening in February or March. So my short term, it's possible. If the situation calms down, it could extend the period much longer, and in that I would see the gold at the same level, around 1,500, 1,600, no more. But if there is one of those shocks, you'll see it just explode over 2,000. And once it hits that level of 2,000, it's going to be a kind of a herd mentality.
Absolutely. Everyone's going to want to
Everybody wants to,
yeah. Absolutely.
But especially central banks will do it. We think of individuals acting like herds, but central gov institutions have shown they can be a herd. Once one does it, the other one wants to do it too.
Yeah, that's an
So
interesting
who's going to
point.
get gold the first?
Right. Government's acting with the herd mentality as well. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. It was a pleasure having you, and we look to have you again soon. Thank you.